Hi, this is Abhi and Madhu from Inspiring Idea Podcast. Completed a power-packed episode with Dheeren Velu, ICT Professional of the Year 2019, TEDx speaker, and an AI enthusiast. Dhiran, what are the key takeaways for our audience from this episode?
Hey, throw yourself into the unknown, stay on top of new technology, be brave to innovate, get involved with the community and stay in the loop with the community. And if you're out there building a startup, be a camel, build a product to be a camel and not a unicorn. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Abhinav.
I'm Madhu.
Welcome to the Inspiring Idea Podcast. We interview people from across the world and share their life stories and success formulas with our audience. We hope this will inspire you to achieve your dreams. So, let's get the show started.
Welcome to the show, Dhiran. How are you today?
Good. Thank you, Madhu. Thanks for the opportunity to be on the show.
Absolute pleasure, mate. Absolute pleasure. So, Dhiran, in the next 30 minutes, we wanted to really explore your life journey and deep dive into some of the key moments which contributed to who you are today. Yeah, I wanted to really start with a quote. William Arthur Ward said, "Opportunities are like sunrises. If you wait too long, you miss them." I would like to take you 2 decades ago when you plunged into the digital world. It's only apt to say that you have seized that opportunity of dot-com boom. Do you want to share that story with us?
Yeah, .com boom. That's a long time ago. Um, See, when the .com thing was happening, we were still in university, obviously. It was a bit of a side gig thing. And back in the day, only a few people knew what was happening really in the computer world, right? So I was lucky enough to be in the computer science stream of education, and you get to hear about all the success that's happening in the .com. So a bunch of us, three of us, got together. We set up a company part-time, studying full. The main day thing was studying, but on the side, we set up a company and we went about a series of ventures in that .com space. We built an online derby platform. I don't know if you guys know what derby is. The horse races, the derby. So we explored how that can be completely experienced online at that time. So a lot of visual elements were thought through, and we went about that. And then we did an online events management platform and several other things. Right, it was a massive experiment, and we did a lot of things. Not necessarily all of them were business viable. Right, we were a young bunch, not having deep understanding of the commercial realities. But nevertheless, we had the passion, we knew the technology well, we knew the buzz that was happening, we were reading and doing things at night and going back to university in the morning. So all that good stuff happened. Fantastic learning, not a lot of commercial success, but we were on the bandwagon, and hasn't stopped, I guess, since then.
It looks like you lived life. That's fantastic.
Well, yes, we sort of, piggybacked on the trends and learned along the way. And if you're a passionate bunch, nothing stops you.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. Dhiran, I was looking at your profile and I found that you've traveled and worked in many different countries: India, UK, Australia, Japan, New Zealand, and whatnot. Is this a choice that you made or it was a flow in your life?
I think it was a deliberate choice. The first travel wasn't. It was just by chance that I was hired, and I never. So I grew up in India, in Bangalore. I studied there, but I never really got to work there much. Very quickly I was traveling and I was working. My kind of work required me to be at client sites.
Mm-hmm.
So when I went to the UK and I worked in Europe for a long time, I quickly started to enjoy this other passion of mine. I think it's a common thing for a lot of people to travel and explore, right? We're all humans. We love that exploration aspect. We want to learn about people. We want to learn about culture, new land, new things.
True.
And I always wanted to do that. And I thought I'll reserve that at some part in my life, when you could afford travel, you're a young IT consultant, and, you have to firstly establish your career, and then there will be a time when you can do all this travel thing, I thought.
Mm-hmm.
But it just happened to me that I was actually doing it. But I was not seeing it that way. And then I quickly realized this is it. I could do what I love doing. I mean, I love my job. I still love the kind of work that I'm into and what I do. But I also love this travel aspect. So I would really, at that point, I used to call my manager literally my travel desk. And I used to call him and I used to tell him, hey, travel desk, is there anything happening in Paris? And he was a very cool manager, and we have a lot of good memories. So I'd call him as the travel desk, and I'll tell him anything happening in Paris, and he'd go, "Oh, 3 weeks in Paris. What do you think?" And I go, "I'm on it." And I wouldn't ask him what the job is. I tell him, "Yes, I'm going," and then he would tell me what the job is. It requires you to prepare. It's an area you don't understand really well. You don't have a lot of experience, but I know you do it. So I would go nights and nights, study the subject, get ready for that particular gig, and I would travel. And same thing, I would finish the Paris gig, and I'd call them and say, anything happening in Portugal, because I know 2006 the football final was happening there. So I would go, hey, anything happening in Portugal, like for a couple of weeks or a month or 2 months, 3 months, and he would make it happen.
Awesome.
This is a true story. I actually used that whole, the opportunity in our world, in our IT world, at least at that time, to travel and work, and I piggybacked on it. so that took me places. I've gone through, different places. I've lived and worked in many countries. I've met a lot of different people. I've understood different cultures, different perspectives, and I think that's the biggest learnings that ever happened in my career is understanding people and the different kinds of people, the different environments I've been working on. Everything else is, comes along the way.
True. All right. So you worked in different countries. Do you have any exciting stories that you would like to share today with us?
Yeah, lots. I was actually talking about this story recently to somebody. I was in Japan.
Mm-hmm.
I used to work there for a bit, and we were in this 42nd floor or something, this tall building, and I didn't know a lot of the language. I just knew very, very basic, maybe a couple of words just to survive. just to go and get myself food, get myself a train ticket or something, just very basic. And we would have interpreters with us. When we go to meetings, the interpreter would go with us everywhere. And I had a team that I was leading. I was tech leading a team that spoke zero English. And there were 8 people in the team, and I spoke almost zero Japanese. Yet I was the technical lead, and we would have heated arguments over technical design, whiteboarding. Me in English and them in Japanese, and it just worked. Right? It's just anyway. So I had this team, and I had this interpreter who would help me understand. One guy in the team would know a little bit of English, so I would use him as my pivot to communicate, right? And there was this incident one day. There was an earthquake, right? I didn't even realize there was an earthquake. Well, there was an earthquake about to happen. It had happened elsewhere, and it was about to happen in the area that we were in. We were in Tokyo that time, and this guy next to me, his cell phone started ringing very weirdly, and he became really pale, right? I'm like, that's a bad ringtone. Firstly, it's an annoying ringtone, and then the other phone started ringing with the same ringtone, and so on and so forth. So you had all these phones ringing in the same annoying ringtone, and I knew something disastrous was about to happen. Looks like a panic alert, right?
Mm-hmm.
Some alert, and then you had these announcements in Japanese in the PA systems, I didn't know what was happening, and I didn't know what to do. I was the only non-Japanese in my floor. I was the only guy who was waiting for the English announcement to happen, and that happens after the Japanese announcement, of course. The earthquake would have happened, and the English would have never had a chance, by the way. It didn't. At least I'm here to tell you the story. So this Japanese announcement happened, and everybody's doing something, right? Someone is going under the desk, and someone's doing something, and someone's doing a drill. And I don't know what the hell was happening. And I couldn't even find this guy, this one English guy that I knew. He's probably under some desk. Didn't know where the hell he was. And all I was thinking was, I wish I paid more attention at the Japanese school. I used to go to the Japanese school in the evening and didn't pick up anything. I'm like, I'm about to die, I think, and I don't know why I'll be dying. Anyway, it's a very sort of a memorable experience. The culture, we don't understand the language, and we're there and we're working. But there's lots and lots of good stuff as I don't know. That's something I remembered because I was talking about this recently. In fact, in another discussion.
That's beautiful, man. That's beautiful. I think the experiences that you were sharing, be it Portugal or Paris or Japan and whatnot, I think that gives you that holistic picture of the culture, the people, etc., and make you better prepared for some of the life challenges that are going to, throw you, just like the current situation with COVID and all that.
Yeah.
Is that helped you to jump onto the bandwagon of AI? We talk about AI and AI being the buzzword. In the last 3 to 4 years, almost everyone uses that word. However, prior to that, that was not the case. And how was your entry? Was it any dramatic in terms of getting into AI? And how did you make a career?
Yeah, it's an interesting journey. Look, I studied AI, right? So I did academic studies in AI, and many of its sub subjects, neural networks and a little bit of data science and all of that. We never really got to use it. The fundamental concepts haven't even changed today. It always existed, even 20 years ago, but we never got to use it. We all went into what's called an AI winter, right? There was not enough resources to actually experiment with this technology. It was an expensive technology, expensive in the form of computing it required, data it required, and all of that. So all the experiments happened in some rich, expensive labs, which we never had access to. So basically, all I had was this textbook knowledge of the subject, but never got to use it. And of course, you do, as a consultant, you do what comes to you, right? So I picked up a whole raft of other IT subjects. I started as what was called a service-oriented architecture those days. I was a SOA consultant. I did integration consulting for a long, long time. I specialized in SAP and mainframe integration and all of that, understanding SAP systems when it was new and understanding mainframe systems, the legacy ones and all of that, until the point where IBM, the company that I used to work with, was putting together a team to commercially implement AI. And that caught my attention. So I actually put my hand up and I said, hey, I think I know this subject, right? I've studied this. I know textbook versions of it. And I would love to get a hands-on and more practical with this. And I've been keeping a tab on this topic as well. And I knew it was becoming mature. It was becoming mainstream. So when they did the first team, I put my hand up, I jumped onto it. It required me to study again. Of course, things had slightly shifted and the thinking was different. So I went ground up again, went back to the textbook, took a couple of courses online. IBM put us through a series of education. And then we started rolling out a commercial implementation of AI. It was mostly in processing. It was a large monolithic of an AI system, like a multi-million-dollar license system. And we were doing some really cool, fancy stuff with it, from doing cancer research to understanding, finding the needle in petabytes of data, and finding patterns in research data, finding patterns in medical research and things like that. So that is how I got back to it. And then AI, if you follow AI as a technology, it came like that back, like a big system, like the big boys games, right? Like no small little company could implement AI to solve a small problem, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then it was moving at such speed. It was becoming more and more mainstream. It was literally, it was racing Moore's law, right? It was more affordable. Computing was becoming more affordable. I mean, you could have a GPU run on your laptop if you wanted, right? So computing was becoming very accessible. Data that we were producing was just everywhere. Data is everywhere. and all the algorithms, the new technique, the new machine learning architectures were all coming out of research labs like Google DeepMind and those labs, all for free, all open sourced. So AI was becoming mainstream, and then it became now it is a technology which anybody can pretty much access, right? So it's pretty much mainstream now. We actually apply it to solve even smaller problems, not just large, big problems. So I got back onto that from IBM, and then I sort of stayed on top, and still am. I guess it's still one of my most passionate technology areas.
That's really very interesting. Dhiran, I just want to ask you in terms of there are number of things related to emerging technologies, and now we hear a lot of different terms. We hear artificial intelligence, IoT, machine learning, NLP, and the list is long. How do you think the world has embraced these technologies and evolved over a period of time?
Yeah, I touched that whole how the system, how the technology itself went from the big areas to more mainstream and all of that. There's a couple of things happening with all these emerging powerful technologies. I mean, AI is no small technology, right? It's a bit of a technology revolution in itself. But AI is used in not just to solve the obvious business problems, which is what we are all involved in, the commercial implementations of this. Are we solving a problem to have a commercial advantage, right? That's what we do most of our time. But there is also powerful usage of these systems. AI, is one of the technologies that has potential to take on some big societal challenges that we've always had, and it is being used there. So it's also being used to solve these big societal problems that has large community effect, that has large effect on humanity itself. There's one area of work that's happening there. These technologies are embraced to do that, and the other areas are day-to-day thing. From hey, how can my bank transaction be processed better, to how can I solve poverty or climate issues that we have. So it's very holistic, right? That way, it's sort of it's got a huge spectrum on how it's being applied and embraced. Similarly, IoT, they all fall in the same thing.
So it's so diverse. And how do you think people are actually focusing on solving these problems in terms of knowing the capabilities of AI versus applying such technologies to solve these business issues per se?
As in how they are solving, as in how
say,
they
for example, I'm a technology expert. I don't know anything about IoT, but how do I know that I'm going to solve my business problem without even consulting with others that IoT is the thing that I got to go and refer to and get consultancy on? So how do you kind of bridge that gap of say, if you want to unpack these into a business leader standpoint versus somebody who is so technologically savvy, and how do you kind of combine those two people together to provide the solution for the problem that the business or the individual is trying to solve?
Yeah, that's a good question actually. Look, it definitely requires the business leaders to have some kind of, for them to also go through some kind of a learning phase to understand what these technologies can and cannot do, right? It's super important. Otherwise, what you hear, particularly about AI, is you hear very ambiguous, sort of mixed messages about what AI can and cannot do. Same thing with IoT, same thing with blockchains and technologies like that. It gets diluted with some kind of other happening in the market, like a cryptocurrency thing can just dilute. And then suddenly you wonder, oh, isn't that the bad technology that does bad stuff? How will it going to solve my problem that I'm having with my call center or something, right? So they're not able to connect that. I think the management, the business folk also have to go through some kind of learning to understand these technologies. They don't have to be technologists, but they need to understand, how can they strategically use these technologies. So I think it's from both ways. And of course, for technologists, like myself and y'all as well, it is also our sort of the onus is on us also to make it understandable to the business and to the community and what this can and cannot do. So I think it's both ways.
That's a good point. So would you have any suggestions for people to start as a business leader? What comes to my mind is about ABCD. You got to know artificial intelligence basics, you got to know blockchain basics, you got to know cloud basics, you got to know data basics. So I call it as ABCD. So where would people find some basic courses for them to equip so that they're not missing out some of the key decisions and investments that they're making?
Yeah. I think there's actually an overload of information.
Very true.
Honest,
Very
right?
true.
There is not a lack of information out there. The problem is there's so much you don't know where to start. And some time ago, it was hard to find good meaty, blogs or articles or documentation of certain technologies. Today, there's so much of it that you don't know where to even start from. So I think it's a tough thing, right? It's about firstly starting from where you are. So if you look at AI, I get this question asked, all the time. Where do I start? Okay, I want to get into AI, but if you look, AI is a general purpose technology, right? It's like, hey, I want to do something with electricity. Where do I start? Right? It is almost like that. But then what do you want to do with electricity? Do you want to make a television, or you want to light a room with illumination, or you want to run a car with it? So if you sort of map that back to the AI world, I always tell my the people that I'm engaged with, there is so many areas. You could become a researcher, right? All you could do all your life, if that's what you like doing, is research in AI. There's so much to do in that space. You could write algorithms for a living, right? And that's all you'd enjoy doing. Perhaps you've got an algorithm background and you continue to do that in the AI space. You could just be in that data space, right? Just the data that feeds AI systems and the data that is used to teach these AI systems. You could just be in that data space because you come from a data background. So your entry point would be from a data. And then if you go to the non-technical thing, somebody's got to write a business strategy on AI, right? How would you take this? How do you have a cloud strategy? You have a finance transformation strategy. You have all these business strategies. So if you're a strategy person, you could approach AI as how do I write an AI strategy, or how do I develop an AI strategy for my company or for other companies that I'm helping? Or it could be, there are other areas. There are like, you can become an auditor. You maybe have an audit background. How can I audit an AI system? How can I make sure that an AI system is transparent, it's compliant, it's making the right decisions, using the right data, it is not, it's not biased, and all of that audit things can come from an audit thing. So there is so many different areas within the technology, and my advice would be to, see where you are. You could say, hey, I don't have any of this. I am a functional person, right? Let's take a really just a functional job. Let's say in medicine, right? I am an X-ray. I'm a radiologist, right? I don't know IT, but then you got this domain experience with you. So no AI system is going to work properly without domain expertise embedded into that. So who does domain expertise comes from? From the domain expert. So you could be a domain expert and engage in AI systems to train it this time, right? To make sure it doesn't go outside its boundaries from a domain perspective. So there's so many different ways you can approach it, and it's always good to start from where you are. What is your core area of expertise, and then you go into how AI can sort of meet that.
That's a very interesting answer, Dhiran, because a lot of time people think that if they have to build up their career into AI, they have to start from the scratch. They have to unlearn everything that they know. And that may not be true because, as you said, depending on kind of job that you're looking for, what your area of interest is, and then you can look at how you can leverage AI or the other technologies and build your career on top of it. So that's really great insights.
Yeah.
That's super awesome. I think what we are also essentially alluding to is there are job opportunities in terms of who you are and knowing your strengths. Even when technology is evolving. As long as you are able to catch up with the technology with the strengths of what you have, you should be able to create your own job and make yourself, super efficiently contributing to the next set of challenges that you're going to face. So that's very, very encouraging, Dhiren. With such passion for technology and all that, I'm tempted to move on to the next question, which must be close to your heart, which is ICT Professional of the Year 2019. That's a massive achievement in itself. I'm sure that would not have been easy at all. So how did you feel when you were selected for this? What was the competition like? And tell us that story.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's one of my one of the major events in my life. Perhaps it will be one of my major events even going forward, I guess. It was not an easy sort of a journey, right? If you want to plot that as a journey, I honestly did not think. Honestly, I'm not just saying that. I honestly did not think I would actually win the award.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted when I was nominated for it. My company at that time nominated me for that award, and I had all these interviews with the panel. And as they asked me questions and as they understood what I was doing, as I was writing my profile and stuff, I knew, there's definitely more that they were looking for, and what I've done and all of the good stuff. When I came to the finalists, I was announced as a finalist, right? The top 4 finalists. I thought that's it. This is the ultimate, right? Being the finalist in Australian Computer Society's 2019, Professional of the Year is the biggest award within all of the awards, by the way. Right? Professional of the Year is the final one, right? It's the last one they announce on the night. It's the biggest one. It's the grand finale. And I said, wow, I'm going to be on the stage with the finalists. Full stop. That's it, right? There was nothing more. And when I saw my finalist, there was another lady who was Australia's highest patent holder. I think she's got 230 odd patents or something to her name. Right?
Wow, crazy.
There's no one I know in my life who's got so many patents, by the way. And I happened to work with her. Very, very surprisingly, I had a call with her just this morning. Just a casual call out of the blue. She called me, and so it's really fresh in my head. Anyway, so she was a finalist. Someone I looked up to for many years was also my co-finalist. And then there was other person who had founded, today is one of the most successful AI companies in the country. The founder of that was another finalist, and so on. These were highly accomplished people, highly accomplished people. Some of them I was admiring and following and getting inspiration from. So in the green room, just before your name gets announced, when your name doesn't get called out, that means you're the winner, right? So first they call out the first name, you could hear it, and then that person goes. And we were like 4 of us, and the first person goes. I'm like, oh my God, I thought, well, there you go, there's 3 of us, right? And then the second person goes, and there's 2 of us. And then the third person goes, that's when you're the finalist. I really don't, I had almost like a blackout, I think, from the time that the third person went to me going on the stage and receiving. So I might sound quite dramatic here, but I really did not expect to win at all because of the people that I was with, and they are highly accomplished. So the award, if it did anything to me, it only humbled me. It only said, that was the only experience I take from the award. I left that room totally humbled. Overwhelmed, of course, but really humbled. And that's what I felt. If you wanted to know what the award feeling was, and it's no small thing, especially for someone to have come and adopted Australia as my country, and to understand the new land, and to establish yourself here, make new connections, make your new networks. It's almost starting again, right? Almost starting again.
True.
And to go on to be the Australian Professional of the Year, I thought was very. I really felt accomplished in some ways, but it's one of the biggest things that could happen to me, I guess, perhaps.
Do you have any tips or suggestions for people who want to apply for this in the coming years, or any key learnings that you had out of this?
Yeah. Oh, look, absolutely. Australian Computer Society. I mean, as an IT professional, I think you have to be part of that organization. I mean, I now engage a lot with them. There's a lot of activities that I try and help. I try and help where I can. I wish I could do more, but I've got to know the organization a little more better. This is our industry body, right? And they're doing a lot of good stuff. So, firstly, to know what's happening there, and once you, I don't know if you all are members of that association, but you'll see a lot of graduates, a lot of young, I want to be an IT professional people there, and you see the passion. You see there's such large number of people wanting to make their life in IT, and then it's such a rewarding thing. I mean, it's your industry, right? And so, so tips for someone. I mean, firstly, you got to be aware of things like these are happening. There's all kinds of award nominations, right? Student of the year, teacher of the year, or you could have a product, and then they also recognize that. So not just ACS. There's many such recognitions out there. To keep a tab there, to not only get motivated by what's happening there, but also to apply if you think you are and the application process. It is you honestly, authentically tell what you've done, and it is up to them to see if that resonates with what the award category is for, and what it really means, and then going from there.
Oh, that's excellent. In fact, I was actually thinking about some of the technologies that you have learned all through your experiences, and what resonated me was the communication. You got to have a very strong communication for you to basically implement something and then make a change in people's lives. Which brings me to the next question about your TEDx. I think we're talking superstar question versus superstar question, because we've got so much to offer here. How did the TEDx happen? I remember you wanted to do something for the community, right? It's on the augmented intelligence. That was our training conversation, by the way. So would you want to expand that more so that people can get benefited?
Yeah, look, TEDx, again, a wonderful platform. I quite enjoyed my whole TEDx participation. At that time, I was doing a lot of talks, primarily talking about artificial intelligence in a very layman's term. That was my whole domain. I said, I really still think this is one of the most powerful technologies. And if we were to solve some big societal problems, like I keep saying, this is the kind of technology you're going to leverage, right? But you also have to know clearly what this can and cannot do. And when the early days of AI was out in the market, people had Hollywood definitions of AI, right? You talk to anybody, they'll say, "Oh, yes, I know what AI is. It's a computer that can do autonomous decisions like human. It can learn, and then eventually it becomes better than you and it kills you." Like that was the whole definition of AI, right? And then if we had definitions like that in our head, we are not going to. I thought there will not be adoption of this, right? There will not be, the opportunity that this technology brings will be untapped. So I was doing a lot of these talks on what I had seen, hands-on on what this tech can and cannot do. I also was talking about the flaws of the technology at that time. What it couldn't do, how far it went, and where it failed and where it broke. So I started talking in universities, I started talking in smaller meetup groups, and I would just randomly say, hey, somebody would mention AI and they say, "Can you come on stage and just tell us what this thing is about? We don't even know. We know what it stands for, and we don't even know after that." So I would actually go up and tell them, "Hey, this is what I do, and this is what we can do with this, and I think this is a super cool tech, and it can do some really good stuff." And that's it. That was the whole definition of AI that was going on. So I was doing a lot of these talks, and I started, sort of getting myself onto bigger stages, if you like, larger audiences and more diverse. I was talking at a design event with designers and marketing experts, and it's a large stage, and I was sort of presenting there, and I was presenting the thing, but I was constantly making sure the community understood what this meant, right? because I also knew this technology was being used, deployed already, to understand, to profile you, to understand whether you should get a loan or not, or to understand, all of those things are going to happen anyway. You got to be aware of it, right? You got to be aware. Your children have to be aware of what this technology can and cannot do, and what it's doing to you already, right? So I was doing all these community talks as well, and through that came this opportunity to actually present the subject at TEDx, which is like fantastic platform. I mean, and as for the talking and the presentation goes, you're in the hands of the fabulous TEDx team. Yeah. Anybody, they couldn't, they are so professional at this, they get the best out of you. So I would give all of the credit, if at all, if the talk was clear and you understood the technology and you took away something, a large portion of the credit goes to the TEDx team that brought that out of me. So we spent 2 weeks, rehearsing our talks and rehearsing our points. And every time I would say something complex, the team would say, if your mom was sitting there in that room, would she understand what you just said? And I would go, no, she wouldn't, which means nobody will understand, right? And then I would go and refine that and say, how can I talk about deep neural network in a way that my mom will understand? What analogies can I use? Should I use the way the brain processes? And all of that thing, just says, you're still not layman's, right? You're still not getting your message across. It is really challenging. And when when you finally put together that thing, the whole thing was the community should take away every piece of information that's given. And by the way, my mom was in the room, and I think she took away most of it.
Excellent, man. Excellent.
Yeah. So that was the whole TEDx thing, and that's how I got into it. And the whole purpose behind TEDx was that, to get that message out there to the community.
So in terms of the community work as well, so is there anything else that you do apart from the one that you mentioned about educating the communities? Is there anything else that you would want to share here?
Yeah, well, I work with the council, where I can. I wish I could do more. I honestly wish I could do more, but work and other priorities comes in my way. I did a lot of initial work with schools and stuff, promoting STEM and programming for children. And start off in my son's school, I would go and ask the teachers, why wouldn't you, teach computing and programming? Not because I'm a computer guy and I wanted my son to be one or my kids to learn, but I said that's it's fundamental. It's like teaching math. It's like learning chemistry and biology at school. You have to learn computers, and so I would go, and if I get a chance, I would go and do a little session at the school. So I started doing that in schools in the neighborhood, and then got myself involved with the council, and that is how I started. But now I sit on the council's Smarter City Advisory Committee. My 2 cents, like I said, I wish I could do more, and I'd love to. Hopefully I have the capacity and the energy to do it.
Excellent. In terms of your mentorship, you would have seen umpteen number of people coming in from the professional world, and also people who want to have their startup journey getting moving as well. So what advice would you generally give them, and what do you think are the startups ideas that you see booming after post-COVID?
Yeah, look, startups are a fantastic world. It's where I draw my energy from, right? I refuel myself at startups at startup centers, at startup places, and I had some personal involvement as well. I left a big organization. I went into the world of startups. I worked with 2 smallish startups. Went through that journey from startup to scale up myself with these companies. But when you go and talk to a startup founder, or when you go to a startup place, or an innovation accelerator, or whatever it is, you will see the energy that these founders bring, right? They've usually, mostly they've put everything they have on the line, right? And they wake up in the morning, they jump out of bed to come and just do one thing, is to make their startup work. And they carry a lot of energy, and it's contagious. If you're with them, you cannot help but to to tap into that energy and to become that, right? And to
True.
mimic.
Yeah.
So that is addictive. It's very addictive, and that's what keeps drawing me back to startup. Although I have other things to do and my plate's usually full, but I still go and try and help startups. So even now I'm involved in sort of coaching, mentoring a few startups that I believe in, and concepts that I believe in. Luckily, my current work, my day job, involves dealing with startups, involves interacting with these startups. So I'm super, super happy about that aspect of my day job. I mean, all aspects of my day job, but that in one particularly. So we get to interact with the startups a lot. Startups, to your other question, Madhu, startups post COVID-19. I mean, COVID-19, the startups are going through some testing times, right? It's not, even big organizations are going through testing times,
True.
right?
Yeah.
Startups particularly are hit very, very badly. And if you keep a tab on this, you'll know that they're just closing shop. People are just, that's it. They were on the edge anyway, and all it required was one single thing to move, and they're off, right? So a lot of things have moved off late, and a lot of startups have gone fast. Okay, and it's testing times. But what if someone is in the startup world, my advice to them even now is, at this time, stop and think. Firstly, be brutally honest. Is your idea still relevant? They will know. It's a very hard question. It might sound simple. They'll say, yes, it is relevant, because I've been thinking about this. I've been living this idea for the last 3 years. Every day of my life, every moment of my life, I've been living this idea. It's still relevant. Then I ask them again, are you sure that the problem you're trying to solve, or you were trying to solve, hasn't the problem changed since COVID? They don't know it because they're so deeply in it, right? And it's really, you have to be brutally honest and say, is that problem worth solving? Does that problem even exist in today's climate, or will it exist 2 years from now? So number one thing is that, right? The second big, if I may just, give a tip or an advice is, you would have heard of unicorns in the startup world. Yeah, everybody wants to become a unicorn, right? Well, it's a cool little terminology, and you achieve a certain valuation, you become a unicorn, right? $1 billion, you become a unicorn. And startups tend to build this unicorn. Unicorns are mythical creatures, right? You haven't seen them, no one's seen them, but they're mythical, they're magical. They live somewhere, and suddenly you become one, right? I would say, don't build your startup to be a unicorn, but to think like a camel, right? If you look at a camel, it's constructed itself in such a way that it can go for days and days without water. In extreme temperature, it can run as fast as it can run with water, right? Or with food. So it's a very resilient animal, right? And when it finds water, it'll load itself up, right? And if it doesn't find water, it's like, guess what? I'm going to keep running, right? So what we need are more camels and not unicorns, right? in terms, if I may put an animal to it. So that's the kind of startups you want to build. A startup that can continuously chug along in bad times. A startup that can adapt itself into extreme conditions. And we're going to see a lot of these extreme conditions. Financial spending and financial purses we've tightened, right? There's no investment has become very, very thin now, very careful, not thin, right? People are very cautious in where the money goes. So there was a time, even a year ago, like 2019, you would have heard, oh, somebody just raised 2 million, somebody raised 10 million, somebody raised 20 million, somebody's got third round of funding. Now you don't hear that, right? You don't hear that because people don't know. It's uncertain times, so people are constrained financially. So in such an environment, you want to build startups that are resilient, startups that are, super adaptive. It can just change and morph itself and run, right?
I'm glad that I asked this question, and I love the analogy.
Yeah. I think this could be the tagline for our show now.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, awesome. Dhiran, listening to you today, looks like you had an intuition about the dot-com boom, graphic design, artificial intelligence, and you ended up making your career in this particular areas. What is your advice for the next generation?
I think I'll just continue from my previous startup thing, right? I mean, the only advice now is the old mantra was build your career or build your product to last, right? That's what my parents taught us. That's what my teachers taught me. That was my early mentors taught me. Build something to last, right? But I think now it is you build something to adapt.
Beautiful. Yeah.
You don't want something to be so strongly built that it is so rigid that it can't move and morph and change, right? You want something to adapt, to change along with. You must have heard that there's a story that's doing rounds in the internet around this bridge. Have you heard of that?
No, go for it.
Go for it.
Choluteka Bridge. Can I go? Can you go it?
Yeah.
Of course, go for it.
Okay. So it's a fantastic thing, and it really. When I read that, I actually stopped and I reflected on it, and I took some time to really say, "Wow, that's so profound." So this bridge called the Choluteca Bridge, it's in Honduras, right? They wanted to build a bridge over a river, but that area is prone to extreme weather conditions, cyclones, typhoons, all the time, all throughout the year. So they said if we were to build a bridge, and building the bridge was of real need, economically, people-wise, everything. They had to build a bridge over that river. So they said if we were to build this bridge, it has to be a super strong bridge, right? Because of the environmental conditions. So they got this state-of-the-art Japanese architecture company, and they brought the best minds, the world's best mind, to build a bridge that was never ever built before architecturally, right? It was an architectural wonder. It was a marvel, right? And they built the bridge. They built it in time. They spent a few billions, and the bridge just stood. And guess what? The typhoon happened. The cyclones happened, and there was a massive cyclone that happened, and it just washed away cities, right? It washed away cities, and the bridge just stood still. It didn't change. But what the typhoon did is it washed away the roads that led to the bridge and the roads that came off the bridge.
Oh, okay.
Right? The bridge stood its time. And the typhoon also changed the course of the river. Okay. So the river didn't even go under the bridge anymore. It changed course. It's going somewhere else, right? So the bridge stood there, a wonderful construction, genius, a marvel, but it starts from nowhere and goes to nowhere now, right? So, you don't want to be building careers, and you don't want to be building products and all of that that's built to last. You want to build something that can adapt, can change, and can take a new course. And you're going to have a lot of these cyclones and typhoons in our market, as we all know. So yeah, that's probably my one big advice.
Massive. Excellent story, man. You're a good storyteller for sure. Audience, I'm sure they're going to love what you're saying. How do you think people can reach out to you, man?
Oh, well, I'm accessible on LinkedIn, the usual channels. LinkedIn, Twitter. LinkedIn is probably the best way to, say hello to me and reach out.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for your time today.
And thanks, Abhi. Great to be on the show.
Great to have you on the show. Thanks, Dhiran.
Thanks for tuning in, my friends. We have got thousands of people listening to this podcast and wanted to thank you all for the love and encouragement so far. Some of you have reached out personally to us and thanked as well for producing great quality content. It would be awesome if you like and follow our LinkedIn page, Inspiring Ideas, and please don't forget to hit the subscribe button from where you are listening. We are across all the key podcast channels, Apple, Google, Spotify, etc. We will see you with another great episode next week. Thank you so much.